The BO-105 is a helicopter that is the marvel of the German engineering after the Second World War. Something that was so good in the civilian market, it eventually ended up as a major actor in the minor militaries across the world. But how good is this helicopter? Does it have any good armaments? And most importantly, is this helicopter really worth it? Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bob Dickinson and welcome back to another brand new video. Today, we will be taking a look at the BO-105 series of helicopters in Warthunder. But before we do that, let's talk about its history. The history of this helicopter goes right back into the Cold War. This helicopter started in the civilian market. After many development changes with regards to its design, and Bolko-Blum and Messerschmitt merging together, the BO-105 was born. Eventually, the German Bundeswehr requested some of the BO-105s to be integrated to the German military, with the Hot 1 missiles being available on this helicopter. The foreign market for this helicopter made it to become one of the best German aviation exports since World War II. One of these customers was Sweden. In 1985, Sweden had a competition for their helicopter program. So, one BO-105CB model was modified enough so they could actually mount the BGM-71 tow missiles on them. This helicopter also had a tow-compatible camera on top. The name was also changed to the CB2. After successfully passing the tests, the helicopter returned to Germany, and Sweden created their own version called the HKP-9A. The legacy of the BO-105 remained in Sweden, as they also upgraded this helicopter to be able to carry out the thermals and the upgraded variant of the tow missiles. This was named to the HKP-9A FC. This was the general history of the BO-105. This helicopter deserves its own video, but for now, let's get on with the armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's aircraft is the BO-105, or the HKP-9. Now the first thing we need to take a look at is the crew. This helicopter has a pilot and a gunner. This helicopter may be limited, but it definitely can pull itself up. You have the AN/APR-39 radar warning receiver, which is not available on the HKP-9AFC, but instead you have thermals on that variant. You have night vision device, which the early Swedish HKP-9 doesn't have, a Swedish tow-compatible camera with these zoom configurations, and you have the German hot-compatible camera with a slightly worse zoom, and the possibility to install 60 countermeasures only exclusive to the German BO-105s. This helicopter has 3 self-sealing fuel tanks with these fuel presets. The fuel presets on this helicopter can be pretty much interesting. On the maximum preset, you have a lot of fuel, which can critically affect your engine performance if it's actually selected. And if you select the low fuel preset, you can maybe ease up the pressure on your engines. And speaking of the engines, this helicopter, depending on which model it is, can have different Allison engines. All of the BO-105s have 2 Allison 250-C20B turboshaft engines, while the PAH-1A1 has the R3 variant of these engines. Engines that are quite similar and are absolutely sensitive with regards to their collective pitch management. Any type of maneuver or rapid collective pitch change can heavily affect the RPM of your engine. At this rate, it can heavily affect your rate of descent and in some cases just totally stall your engines out. And the interesting fact is that these engines can be easily over-revved and destroyed, which can be a major problem if you're not careful. At the end, you have the oil cooling systems, transmissions, traction of the control surfaces, and prop shafts. Now let's get on with the armaments. Let's start from the most important weapons on this helicopter, the BGM-71C ITOW anti-tank guided missiles, only exclusive on the CB2 and the Swedish HKP-9A, either 2 or 4 installed on the left and right, giving you 8 total. The ITOW missiles that are used on this battle rating are very interesting. You have better quantity of these missiles compared to the Tech Tree variant, at least on the German side. You have a nice penetration, decent maximum speed and firing range, manageable explosive mass, and overall it feels quite nice. The only problems I managed to find with this ATGM was the limited firing window and, the way that the ATGM itself is controlled compared to the Hot 1. And speaking of that ATGM, you have the Hot 1 Euro missile, only exclusive to the PAH-1, 3 installed on each side, giving you 6 total. Now I have to say the Hot 1 missiles do feel much more stable compared to the TOW missiles. They have 70mm extra penetration, 250 meters of extra range, and it has 1 kilogram of extra explosive mass. However, this comes at a minor cost, with their speed getting reduced to 250 instead of 296. In my opinion, the Hot 1 missile is going to be a very nice choice comparing to the early TOW. However, the TOW missiles are very good for their speed and the quantity that they get, as you have 8 of them on the German and Swedish BO-105s instead of the 6 that you get on the PAH-1. Now let's have a look at the second generation of the anti-tank missiles on these helicopters, with the RB55C TOW-2 missile, only exclusive to the HKP-9A-FC. 2 installed on the both sides, giving you 4 total. These missiles are very powerful. You do have a major buff towards your penetration and explosive mass compared to the previous TOW missile, and you have approximately extra 30 meters of maximum speed. I suppose you would get a tandem charged warhead, but there is no information about it over here. The major problem you might have with this missile on this helicopter is that comparing to the previous HKP-9A, you lost half of your missiles for better statistics, and of course extra thermals and, the lack of RWR, which in my opinion is not going to be a good compensation. I mean, sure, the thermal does help, but is it really worth it to limit your armaments to 4 instead of 8? Honestly, I'm not really sure. Up next, we have the German Hawk 2. Up next, we have the German Hawk 2 missiles. God, it sounds so close. Only exclusive to the BO-105 PAH-1A1. 3 installed per side, giving you 6 total. The Hawk 2 missiles are essentially a major upgrade towards the Hawk 1. They have 900mm of penetration, the biggest explosive mass out of them all, with 6.5 kilograms of TNT equivalent, but the rest has pretty much stayed the same. Comparing it to the Swedish TOW-2 missiles, the range is still better and has 100mm extra penetration. And of course, the explosive mass is a major upgrade, as it gets almost twice the TNT equivalent. I'll say almost. This was all of the major armaments that were used on these helicopters. Now the next ones are going to be usually universal on all of them. For example, let's start with the separate 30-pot countermeasures, only exclusive to the German BO-105s, installed on each side, giving you 60 total. And then you have the FN3 12.7mm machine gun pod, 1 installed on each side with 400 ammo each. And of course you have the FN3 pod with 3 Mighty Mouse rockets strapped underneath it, 250 ammo each, giving you 500 total. The cannon pods can do the job, however it is not going to be that useful as you have to sacrifice your ATGMs on each side in order to, install them first. I mean, the German helicopters generally never had main armaments like a 30mm cannon or 20mm in general. If you want to defend yourself, you can install them, but other than that, I personally wouldn't recommend them. Please note that the ATGMs cannot be mounted alongside any armaments mentioned above. Now this was all of the armaments that were used on the German and Swedish BO-105s. Now let's get on with the mobility. When it comes to the mobility of this helicopter, it is absolutely insane. Right after the Z-19, the Eurocopter, or the G-Lynx, this will be one of the most maneuverable helicopters in Warthunder. The top speed may not be that impressive due to the engines or the fuselage not being that, aerodynamic, but at the end it can be absolutely insane with regards to its maneuverability. On the other hand, the engine itself feels like it's lacking power, and trust me, the responsiveness is not really that great. As I said, you can easily over-rev your engine, if you're not careful of course. If you kick the collective pitch a bit too fast in the wrong times, the engines will lose a lot of power. This can be a little bit more critical once you load up more fuel than usual or, going at higher altitudes. Looking at you, Afghanistan map, but outside of that, the helicopter can ascend or descend in a good rate. The pitch control is incredible, the yaw control is phenomenal, and the roll rate is just simply amazing. What it sounded like. Jesus. Now let's get on with the final verdicts. Welcome to the final verdicts. In this section of the video, we're going to have a look at the models of a certain vehicle and predict which one of these are worth your grind or your purchase. Let's start with a premium BO-105 CP2. This helicopter is very good for what it is. It sits at a very decent lineup with the Germans, and it has decent quantity of ATGMs. However, this helicopter is not always available on sale, and it can appear occasionally during the celebrations or just, out of nowhere in general. It is a very good helicopter, but ask yourself this question. With this price that this helicopter has, is it really worth it over, something like the K-50 or the Mi-24P that is literally next to it, or even something like the Z-19E or, the upcoming Mi-35M? For me, honestly, it can be a decent alternative option to the Mi-24P, but in my opinion, You should get it and have fun with it. Up next, we have the BO-105 PAH-1. This helicopter is also sitting at the same battle rating as the rest of the BO-105s, but instead of having TOW missiles, you have the Hot 1 missiles that are very good. But in my opinion, you should wait until you get the next variant of it, because the next one will not only have better ATGMs, but at the same time, it will also stay at the same battle rating as the previous one. Verdict: buy it, but do not spade it. Up next, we have the BO-105 PAH-1A1. This helicopter is the ultimate German BO-105, and the best that you can get in the German helicopter tree. You have the Hot 2 missile, which is pretty much better than the Swedish counterpart, and of course it sits at the same battle rating as the previous helicopter. Verdict: get it and spade the hell out of it. The next two helicopters will be located in the Swedish Heli tree, with the first one being the HKP-9A. This vehicle has the same battle rating as the other BO-105s. It is pretty much identical to the premium equivalent. What does change, on the other hand, is the entire battle rating system and the amount of vehicles available on the Swedish ground tree. Your missile quantity is very decent, and the ATGMs themselves can do the job. Verdict: get it and spade the hell out of it. And finally, the HKP-9A FC. Now I have to say, this helicopter sacrifices half of the armaments and a single radar warning receiver, which, I'm gonna go off script here, this is the same RWR as the AH-64. If you're okay with having the same armament preset as the Israeli Littlebird while not having the radar warning receiver, and, of course, an extra thermals, feel free to spade this helicopter. Outside of that, I don't think it's really worth it. Verdict: get it, but spading it is optional. Now let's get on with the Heli PvE. When it comes to Heli PvE, these helicopters can do the job no matter what variant they are. They're supposed to have their own matchmaking, but unfortunately Gaijin's, way too lazy to work with helicopters with a proper separating game mode. But either way, you're at the bottom of the top tier Heli PvE matchmaking. Destroying the enemy convoy is going to be a little bit of a challenge. If you're well practiced with your wire-guided missiles, you may not have a lot of problems. Outside of that, depending on the quantity of your missiles, you can have more attempts at destroying the enemy anti-airs. If, AH-60s and K-52s were not ruining your targeting already, destroying the enemy assaults and defenses is going to be a little bit hard, considering that all the top-tier helicopters will just, mostly get your kills. You still do have a tiny opportunity window to shoot the anti-tank guns or tanks, while the friendlies are actually aiming for the enemy SPA-Ace. Destroying the enemy aircraft is just something that you do not want to work things around with due to the cannon pods not being that good enough. Destroying the enemy bases on this helicopter is pretty much disappointing. A 6 missile with, mediocre explosive mass compared to, something like the Hellfire is not going to give you anything, let alone, 6 Mighty Mouse rockets. Landing and capturing is going to be something that you can do incredibly well. The maneuverability can compensate for the limited amount of armaments that you have. And for that reason, if you're sharp enough with your turns, you can pretty much outperform all the K-50s if you land in time. Overall, the BO-105s were one of the first helicopters that I achieved in the Swedish Heli tree. They may look simple on surface, but at the end, they're very much a nice companion to your lineups. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Dislike it if you dislike it, and if you want to support my channel even further, you can also join my YouTube membership or give a super thanks if you want to. For now, this is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.